You think driving the night shift is tough? Try hauling cargo down a highway that doesn't exist, with rules that barely keep you alive. Tonight, on Night Creepypasta Rules, a trucker faces the 3 bizarre commandments for surviving Mississippi's route 666, where the road itself is hungry, and the silence has teeth. The air hanging heavy in the cab wasn't just air. It felt solid, tasting of old coffee, rust, and the stale metallic tang of my own fatigue. Outside, Mississippi night pressed against the glass like a physical entity, black, silent, and suffocating. Even the usually relentless drone of summer insects was absent here. Only the Peterbilt's diesel heart throbbed, a lonely pulse against the void, chewing up asphalt that vanished into darkness mere feet beyond the high beams. Route 666, not on the maps, not on the official logs. Just a name whispered between drivers, a grim legend passed down over crackling radios and lukewarm coffee. Triple pay for a straight shot through nowhere. Simple, they said. If you ignored the stories, if you came out the other side, simple had to be enough. Choices had become a luxury I couldn't afford. The old truck groaned under the strain of its sealed anonymous cargo. Wait, I didn't ask about details I didn't want. Knowing felt like inviting trouble. Keep the wheels turning, Ray. That's the job. Earl's voice, raspy like dry leaves skittering on pavement, replayed in my head. His office painfully bright and bureaucratic. Felt like a lifetime ago. 3 rules, Ray. Just 3. Non-negotiable. Ed leaned back then, his eyes sharp, devoid of humor. Sounded straightforward in that sterile room. First, he'd grunted, stabbing a thick finger at the map. Signs start spouting nonsense. Languages you don't know. Symbols. Whatever. You've missed the turnoff that ain't there. You've gone too far. Turn around. Immediately. Don't care how. He'd made it sound like standard procedure. It hadn't felt standard. Second, his voice had dropped, leaning in slightly. Radio locks onto one song. Same tune, every single station. A hard stare. Kill it. Don't hesitate, go station. Power down the whole console. Silence is better. Better than what? He hadn't elaborated. And third, a pause. A scratch of his jaw. You see a preacher walking the shoulder. Tall fella. Dark clothes. Check his hands. No Bible. His eyes had held mine. You keep driving. Faster, if anything. Don't look back. Don't get curious. And God help you if you offer him a ride. Even then, the specificity had chilled me. Out here, it felt like a commandment etched in ice. The miles bled together. Blacktop unspooling through woods so thick they felt like walls closing in, swallowing the light whole. My eyelids were sandpaper. I cracked the window, desperate for clean air, but got only a suffocating wave of humid heat, thick with the scent of decay, wet earth, and something else. Metallic, sharp, like ozone before a lightning strike. Window whined shut again. The silence rushed back, heavier than before, and with it that feeling. Eyes prickling across the back of my neck, watching from the impenetrable black between the trees. Imagination or instinct? My gaze flicked to the mirrors. Empty road behind, then back ahead. That's when I saw it. Not directly in the beams, but a flicker, a wrongness, at the extreme edge where light met dark. A shape detaching itself from the solid wall of trees, impossibly tall, unnaturally thin, moving with a fluid speed that wasn't animal, wasn't human. It darted towards the road, a sliver of deeper black against the night, and was simply gone. My heart slammed against my ribs like a trapped bird. A deer. No deer moved like that. My hands clenched the wheel, knuckles aching. I scanned the roadside, eyes straining against the darkness, searching for any sign, any explanation. Nothing, just the oppressive heat, the steady thrum of the engine, and the empty highway stretching onward, deeper into the watchful, waiting dark of Mississippi. The sight of that impossible shape, or the memory of it, kept replaying, a glitch in my tired brain. I scanned the woods, the rearview mirror, finding only darkness staring back. Easy explanation? A deer caught weirdly in the lights. Exhaustion. Yeah. Exhaustion felt like a good, safe lie to tell myself. But the cold knot in my gut didn't loosen. The air still tasted wrong. Mile after identical mile spooled out. Just the rumble of the engine. The slice of headlights through the oppressive dark. The woods felt like they were leaning in, listening. I downed the last of the lukewarm coffee, the bitterness doing nothing to sharpen my senses. Then ahead, a green highway sign materialized from the gloom. Oak Haven, 50 miles. Standard. Except the edges flickered. The letters wavered, unstable, like words trying to dissolve. Just the lights, I thought. Old wiring on the sign. But the next one, a yellow curve warning, confirmed it wasn't the wiring. The familiar black arrow twisted, writhing like a living thing for one sickening second, before snapping back to normal. Okay? Not normal, not fatigue. My hands tightened on the wheel, sweat prickling on my palms despite the AC's wheezing efforts. Then came the mileage marker, a simple white post. As the headlights hit it, the numbers didn't just change. They burned, replaced for an instant by sharp, glowing symbols that felt ancient and hateful, searing themselves onto my vision before reverting. Runes? Something else? Didn't matter. It was gibberish. Rule 1 crashed down. Signs start talking gibberish. You've gone too far. My breath hitched. Too far? Panic surged, cold and frantic. I slammed my fist on the useless GPS, scanned the roadside desperately. No exits, no turnarounds, just trees and ditch. How the hell was I supposed to turn this rig around? The feeling of being utterly, fundamentally lost washed over me. The metallic tang in the air sharpened, acrid, trapped. Something loomed ahead. A solid mass emerging from the rain-slicked darkness right in my lane. No lights, no warning. Instinct took over. I yanked the wheel hard left, a high-pitched tearing protest erupting from the tires on the asphalt. The massive trailer fishtailed wildly behind me. Metal groaned under the stress. The world became a blur of shaking cab and flashing dashboard lights. For a heart-stopping moment, I felt the pull towards the ditch, the sickening lurch of lost control. Then, somehow, the tires bit again. I wrestled the Peterbilt back into line, chest heaving, heart hammering. I dared to look in the mirror. Empty. Nothing there. No stalled truck, no fallen tree. The road behind me was clear. The road behind me was clear, but the sign I'd just swerved to avoid. It now read, in perfect, placid English, "Watch for fallen rocks." And the next mile marker, just yards ahead, showed a number 6 miles higher than the last one I remembered seeing. 6 miles vanished in the space of a near-fatal swerve. The road wasn't just lying. It was stealing pieces of the journey itself. Silence descended again after the phantom obstacle, thick and suffocating. My own ragged breathing was too loud. The engine's steady thrum felt less like reassurance, more like the ticking of a clock, counting down to God knows what. Every shadow seemed deeper. Every rustle from the woods felt directed at me. The silence was a physical weight, pressing in, feeding the paranoia that coiled like a cold snake in my belly. Need noise. Any noise. Earl's second rule whispered a warning. Radio starts playing the same damn song. Shut it off. But the quiet was becoming unbearable. A breeding ground for fear. Maybe just static. Maybe some preacher ranting about damnation. Fitting, perhaps. But better than this echoing void. My fingers, trembling slightly, reached out and twisted the radio knob. Static erupted from the speakers. A harsh volley of dry snaps and abrasive electronic bursts. I winced, fumbling the volume down, then began scanning the dial. More abrasive noise, like sand pouring over charged metal. Then, faintly, a melody threaded through the interference. An old tune, upbeat, almost sickeningly cheerful, like something warped from a bygone era. Tinny piano, maybe a saxophone. Relief, sharp and potent, washed through me. Anything human. Washed through me. Anything normal. I let the tune play, a flimsy shield against the darkness. It warbled slightly, distorted, like a signal struggling across vast distance. I scanned again, seeking news, talk, anything else. Static. Then the exact same song snapped back, louder this time, clearer, the cheerful melody somehow sounding manic now. Forced. Ice water trickled down my spine. Interference? Bad reception? I punched to press it. Static. Then the same crooning voice, the same upbeat rhythm, maybe with a faint electrical oscillation layered underneath. Enemy. FM. Scan up. Scan down. Every single point on the dial resolved to the same relentless, looping tune. It wasn't just playing. It was hunting across the frequencies. Rule 2. It was happening. My hand slammed the power button, cutting the song off mid-note. The silence that rushed back was different. Heavier. Charged with a waiting intensity. It felt like I'd hung up on something that wasn't finished talking. The cheerful melody lingered, an infuriating echo in my ears. Or was it more? For a second I could almost swear I heard it. Incredibly faint, seeming to drift on the humid air outside the cab. Impossible. Nerves. Had to be. Then came the impacts. Sharp, loud, metallic. Directly overhead. Directly overhead, a heavy, dull collision against the roof of the trailer. My head snapped up, eyes wide. Another impact immediately followed, heavier this time, a solid blow that vibrated through the cab's frame. Then, a third deliberate, resonant strike from above. My blood went cold. Had I hit something? No branches overhung here. Was something up there? Something that had landed? The sequence of impacts stopped as abruptly as it began, leaving only the engine's growl and the frantic drumming of my own pulse against my ribs. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It felt occupied, crowded. Chapter 4. The man at the last chance time stretched and compressed. Minutes felt like hours. The fuel needle kissed. Exhaustion was a physical ache behind my eyes, blurring the edges of the world. Rules 1 and 2 had been tested, found horrifyingly true. What about Rule 3? The preacher. My mind cycled through the warnings, each one a fresh wave of dread. Every flicker of movement in the peripheral darkness. Every imagined whisper from the dead radio frequency tightened the knot of fear in my chest. Then light, a smear of red and green against the black, coalescing into the distinct low electrical hum of old neon. Last chance gas and goods. Hope flickered, instantly followed by suspicion. Too convenient, too isolated, but the truck wouldn't run on fumes and fear. Pulling onto the cracked concrete felt like stepping into a baited trap. But I didn't have another choice. The place was deathly still. Aside from the neon's low hum, a single rust-eaten pickup truck sat silently like a forgotten monument. The air felt thick, stagnant. As I cut the engine, the resulting quiet slammed down, broken only by the frantic chirping of unseen insects that hadn't been there out on the highway. A figure detached itself from the shadowed doorway, wiping hands on a greasy rag, moving with an unnerving lack of hurry. Need fuel? The voice was soft, a low southern drawl that should have been calming, but wasn't. Mid-50s maybe, overalls, cap pulled low. Diesel. Fill it up, I managed, climbing down on shaky legs. He worked the pump with quiet efficiency, not meeting my eyes. I scanned the place, grimy windows, shelves inside holding dusty relics of products. The smell hit me then, sharp pine disinfectant failing to cover something else. Something cloying and sweet, like rotting flowers or old meat. One night, I offered, trying to sound casual. He chuckled, a dry, rasping sound from his throat. They're all long nights out here, driver. This stretch, it keeps folks moving. He finally turned, hooking the nozzle back. His eyes were pale blue, startlingly flat and calm, like a gator waiting just below the surface. Coffee's hot inside. On the house, red flags waved. Rule 4. Don't accept gifts on Route 666. Unwritten, maybe, but screamingly obvious now. Just need the restroom, thanks. Side door. Watch the step. He gestured vaguely. The restroom was a study in contrasts. Patches of obsessive cleanliness right next to thick grime and dead insects. The air was thick with that pine and rot smell, splashing rusty water on my face. I saw my reflection, haunted, hollow-eyed. This place felt wrong, fundamentally wrong. When I came back out, he was standing near the front of my truck, peering at the grill. My stomach clenched. Problem? He looked up. That placid mask unchanged? Nah, just admiring. Good old truck. He stepped back. Sure about that coffee? Got yesterday's sweet rolls too. Got to roll? I forced a tight smile, already moving to the cab. My hand brushed the CB antenna as I reached for the door handle. It felt wobbly, loose in its base. Had I hit a branch, or... My eyes flickered to the front passenger tire. Seemed low, definitely lower than the driver's side. Paranoia, or sabotage. Suit yourself, he said, his voice still mild, but with an edge I hadn't heard before. Storm's coming, though. Heard thunder. I hadn't heard anything but my own fear. I climbed in fast, the familiar stale air of the cab a strange comfort. Appreciate the fuel. The engine caught with a deep rumble, shattering the unnatural quiet. As I pulled away, I couldn't resist a glance in the rearview mirror. Silas stood in the doorway, haloed in buzzing red and green neon. He raised a hand slowly. But my eyes locked onto his shadow, cast long and distorted by the flickering sign. It stretched across the concrete, thin, sharp, and for one heart-stopping, stomach-churning instant, it rippled, twisting at the edges independently from his body like smoke or burnt film, before settling back into normalcy. Accelerator met floor. The Peterbilt surged back onto the asphalt, leaving the last chance and the man with the lying shadow behind. But the trap hadn't sprung. It was tightening. Time stretched and compressed. Minutes felt like hours. The fuel needle kissed. Exhaustion was a physical ache behind my eyes, blurring the edges of the world. Rules 1 and 2 had been tested, found horrifyingly true. What about Rule 3, the preacher? My mind cycled through the warnings, each one a fresh wave of dread. Every flicker of movement in the peripheral darkness, every imagined whisper from the dead radio frequency, tightened the knot of fear in my chest. Then, light, a smear of red and green against the black, coalescing to the distinct low electrical hum of old neon. Last chance, gas and goods. Hope flickered, instantly followed by suspicion. Too convenient, too isolated, but the truck wouldn't run on fumes and fear. Pulling onto the cracked concrete felt like stepping into a baited trap, but I didn't have another choice. The place was deathly still, aside from the neon's low hum. A single, rust-eaten pickup truck sat silently like a forgotten monument. The air felt thick, stagnant. As I cut the engine, the resulting quiet slammed down, broken only by the frantic chirping of unseen insects that hadn't been there out on the highway. A figure detached itself from the shadowed doorway, wiping hands on a greasy rag, moving with an unnerving lack of hurry. Need fuel? The voice was soft, a low southern drawl that should have been calming but wasn't. Mid-50s maybe, overalls, cap pulled low. Diesel. Fill it up, I managed, climbing down on shaky legs. He worked the pump with quiet efficiency, not meeting my eyes, I scanned the place. Grimy windows, shelves inside holding dusty relics of products. The smell hit me then. Sharp pine disinfectant failing to cover something else. Something cloying and sweet, like rotting flowers or old meat. Long night, I offered, trying to sound casual. He chuckled, a dry, rasping sound from his throat. There are long nights out here, driver. This stretch, it keeps folks moving. He finally turned, hooking the nozzle back. His eyes were pale blue, startlingly flat and calm, like a gator waiting just below the surface. Coffee's hot inside. On the house, red flags waved. Rule 4, don't accept gifts on Route 666. Unwritten, maybe, but screamingly obvious now. Just need the restroom, thanks. Side door. Watch the step. He gestured vaguely. The restroom was a study in contrasts. Patches of obsessive cleanliness right next to thick grime and dead insects. The air was thick with that pine and rot smell, splashing rusty water on my face. I saw my reflection, haunted, hollow-eyed. This place felt wrong, fundamentally wrong. When I came back out, he was standing near the front of my truck, peering at the grill. My stomach clenched. Problem? He looked up, that placid mask unchanged. Nah, just admiring. Good old truck. He stepped back, sure about that coffee. Got yesterday's sweet rolls, too. Got to roll. I forced a tight smile, already moving to the cab. My hand brushed the CB antenna as I reached for the door handle. It felt wobbly, loose in its base. Had I hit a branch? Or... My eyes flickered to the front passenger tire. Seemed low. Definitely lower than the driver's side. Paranoia? Suit yourself, he said, his voice still mild, but with an edge I hadn't heard before. Storm's coming, though. Heard thunder. I hadn't heard anything but my own fear. I climbed in fast, the familiar stale air of the cab a strange comfort. Appreciated the fuel. The engine caught with a deep rumble, shattering the unnatural quiet. As I pulled away, I couldn't resist a glance in the rearview mirror. Silas stood in the doorway, haloed in buzzing red and green neon. He raised a hand slowly, but my eyes locked onto his shadow, cast long and distorted by the flickering sign. It stretched across the concrete, thin, sharp, and for one heart-stopping, stomach-churning instant, it rippled, twisting at the edges independently from his body like smoke or burnt film, before settling back into normalcy. Accelerator met floor. The Peterbilt surged back onto the asphalt, leaving the last chance and the man with the lying shadow behind. But the trap hadn't sprung. It was tightening. The image of Silas' disjointed shadow clung to my thoughts like engine grease, cold and unsettling. Every normal sound from the Peterbilt, the low rumble of the diesel, the creak of the suspension, felt amplified, wrong. Had he tampered with more than just the antenna? The tire. Was that strange stillness outside just the calm before? Something else. My jaw ached from clenching it. Keep driving. Put distance between me and that place. That was all that mattered. Then the sky ruptured. Not gradual rain, but a sudden violent curtain of water slammed down. A deafening roar against the roof and windshield. The wipers became useless, flapping arms against the deluge. Visibility vanishing into a churning gray chaos, barely 10 feet ahead. The truck shimmied, tires losing grip for a terrifying second. On the instantly slick asphalt, I fought the wheel, heart hammering. This wasn't weather. It felt like a weapon. And through that blinding downpour, a shape emerged at the edge of the road, walking slowly, deliberately, head bowed against the storm. Tall, gaunt, dark clothing plastered to a thin frame. My eyes shot to his hands, held loosely at his sides. Empty. No book. No Bible. Rule 3. The final commandment. Every rational thought screamed survival, screamed drive, screamed drive. But a deeply ingrained flicker of humanity urged me to stop, to offer shelter. He'd perish out here. Then the memory of the lying signs, the phantom song, Silas' dead eyes, the wrongness of it all, surged back. This wasn't a man seeking shelter. This was the test. My foot, which had instinctively hovered near the brake, slammed down hard on the accelerator instead. The engine bellowed. A deep, guttural sound struggling against the storm as the truck surged forward, sending sheets of muddy water cascading towards the figure. I locked my eyes straight ahead, refusing to look, refusing to acknowledge it directly, but I felt a change as I passed. A shift in the air pressure against the side of the cab. The distinct, chilling sensation of a head turning, of unseen eyes fixing onto me. A gaze that felt ancient, glacial, and filled with a vast, patient hunger. The truck reacted instantly, as if struck by a physical blow. The engine sputtered, a series of violent coughs that shook the whole frame. Losing power dramatically, headlights flickered, deed, then blazed back with painful intensity only to dim again erratically. Warning indicators flashed across the dash in a chaotic, meaningless light show. An unnatural, penetrating cold flooded the cab, instantly fogging the inside of the glass, the temperature dropping degrees in seconds. That sharp, metallic, ozone and decay smell flooded my nostrils, thick and suffocating. The CB crackled, not with static but with a voice. Silas, chillingly clear, cutting through the engine's struggle and the roar of the rain. Told you the weather was turning, driver. The mild drawl was gone, replaced by cold, brittle amusement. Mild drawl was gone, replaced by cold, brittle amusement. Should have listened. Should have stayed for that coffee. A beat of silence, filled only by the storm's fury. He don't take kindly to being ignored, you see. Considers it impolite. Bile rose in my throat. Betrayal cold and absolute. What are you? The words tore from my throat, raw. Silas' chuckle was a dry, rasping friction in the speaker. Me? I'm just the attendant. Making sure the road gets its due. Making sure folks like you understand the rules. Eventually, the coffee just helps ease the transition. Dulls the edges before he collects. The preacher, the toll collector. It was here. Silas had rung the bell. Some learned faster than others. Silas' voice continued, seeming to surround me now, leaking from the very air. Some need a little encouragement, and there it was, not on the shoulder. Right beside my window, a tall, fluid shadow detaching itself from the rain, keeping pace effortlessly with the laboring truck. Features remained indistinct through the water-streaked glass, just an elongated silhouette darker than the night, radiating menace, except for the eyes. 2 points of faint, burning intensity fixed directly on me. A strangled sound escaped my throat as I wrenched the wheel away. Then came a thin, abrasive scratching against the passenger window. A sound that set my teeth on edge, like claws testing the glass. Dark, impossibly long fingers blurred into view against the rain-streaked pane. Panic tipped into raw terror. I stomped the accelerator again, but the engine only gave a choked gasp, refusing more speed. The preacher shape stayed locked alongside, a predator pacing its doomed prey. Whispers erupted inside the cab, overlapping, directionless, ancient guttural sounds that spoke of malice and languages I'd never heard. The road ahead seemed to twist and shimmer under the erratic headlights. Darker shapes flitted through the rain, forcing constant, jerky corrections at the wheel. Survival instinct screamed. Had to break the pattern. Had to do something unexpected. Through a momentary thinning of the rain, I saw it, off to the right, beyond the shoulder. A faint line suggesting old, rotten fencing half swallowed by the woods. An idea, born of sheer desperation, exploded in my mind. As the truck veered slightly, putting the cab's pillar momentarily between me and the figure outside. I yanked the wheel hard right. The entity reappeared instantly at the window, those burning eyes seeming to widen fractionally. I floored the accelerator one last time. The engine gave a final protesting roar. Tires lost purchase on the slick asphalt, then bit hard into the mud of the shoulder. The impact was a deafening cacophony. The dry snap and splinter of old wood, the high-pitched shriek of tearing wire mesh. The truck bucked violently, slamming me against the doorframe. Stars exploding behind my eyes. Branches screeched and clawed along the trailer's side like enraged animals. I fought the wheel, trying desperately to keep the rig from rolling as it plowed through the ruined fence and into the churning mud and dense, resistant undergrowth beyond. Through the spiderweb crack that bloomed instantly across the windshield, I saw the preacher figure thrown back, its form flickering violently like a failing projection, disrupted by the sheer, unexpected force of my escape from its designated path. Then the world tilted sharply, the Peterbilt's front end digging deep into unseen softness. A final, jarring shock shuddered through the frame, accompanied by the groan of twisting metal giving way. And then, silence. Abrupt, absolute, broken only by the relentless drumming of the rain on the roof and the frantic, painful surge of my own blood rushing in my ears. Silence. Not the heavy, waiting silence of the highway, but a thick, muffled quiet punctuated by the rhythmic drumming of rain on the buckled roof. A low groan of stressed metal somewhere beneath me. Pain flared behind my eyes, a dull counterpoint to the sharp throb in my left arm. The biting cold that had invaded the cab was gone, replaced by the cloying, damp heat of the Mississippi night, thick with the smells of churned earth, snapped vegetation, and the acrid scent of hot, damaged metal. My body cataloged its injuries. Sharp pain here, dull ache there. The arm felt definitely wrong. I shifted, grit my teeth against the agony. The truck was canted violently, nose buried deep in mud, the world outside the cracked windshield. A dark, dripping tangle of leaves and branches. The driver's door protested with a high-pitched metallic screech when I threw my good shoulder against it, but finally gave way, opening onto blackness, rain, and the sucking sound of deep mud. I half climbed, half fell out, boots sinking instantly. Rain plastered my hair down, cold rivulets tracing paths down my neck. Leaning heavily against the truck's cold, wet flank, I took ragged breaths. The Peterbilt was crippled, embedded. The trailer sat at an unnatural angle. Whatever was inside was likely ruined. Irrelevant now. The crushing presence I'd felt from the preacher, from the road itself, seemed distant here, faded like a bad signal. But the fear remained, morphing into something more tangible. Isolation. I was miles off any known road, injured, in a storm, with a dead truck. Shivering, more from shock than cold now, I hauled myself back into the wrecked cab. The radio, my only potential lifeline. I hit the power button. Nothing, no lights, no sound, not even the faintest electrical hum. Dead? The CB. My hand shook as I lifted the mic. Anyone read me? This was truck 407. Need help? The speaker emitted only a harsh, abrasive static, punctuated by irregular, sharp pops. For a moment, listening intently, I thought I could discern faint, layered whispers beneath the noise, formless and unsettling. Then, impossibly faint, almost imagined, a broken transmission surfaced. Ray? You're 20? Repeat. It sounded like Earl's gravelly tone, stretched thin and distant. Before I could respond, it dissolved back into the meaningless electronic hash. Alone, utterly alone. Silas' mocking voice seemed to echo in the confined space, making sure the road gets its due. The weight of his betrayal, of the road's calculated malice, settled heavily in my chest. I leaned my head back against the seat, closing my eyes against the throbbing pain. Rain drummed a relentless rhythm overhead. Outside, the dark woods watched, silent and indifferent. The immediate chase was over. The supernatural violence had momentarily retreated. But as I sat there, breathing in the wreckage, listening to the rain, a new, colder dread seeped in. The dread of slow time, of fading hope, of whatever waited in the deep, wet darkness, now that Route 666 had finally let me go. Or perhaps just deposited me somewhere else it owned. Days bled into nights, bled into the monotonous gray ribbon of highways, leading away from Mississippi. How I got out of those woods remains a blur. A staggering walk through rain-soaked dawn, the surprise of finding a muddy logging track, the eventual rumble of an ancient flatbed truck whose driver didn't speak, only nodded curtly when I offered him the last of my cash to drop me in the nearest town with a Greyhound sign. I made the call from a payphone that reeked of urine, told Earl the rig was gone, swallowed by the woods off 666. Didn't embellish, didn't explain. Silence hummed on the line. Then his flat, emotionless sign-off. Consider your contract terminated, Ray. Payouts void. I hung up while he was still talking. Let the company retrieve their ghosts and their cargo. I was done. Weeks later, found me holed up in a motel room whose primary color was beige despair. Hundreds of miles away, geographically, closer than breathing, mentally, rain tapped against the window, a constant reminder. Sleep came in short. Jagged bursts, filled with twisting roads and figures walking without Bibles. Every flicker of fluorescent light, every passing truck's headlights painting the thin curtains, sent jolts of adrenaline through me. Through me. I'd catch myself scanning the hands of strangers on the street. The air conditioning unit occasionally exhaled a faint, sweet smell I recognized with a sickening lurch, the cloying perfume of decay from the last chance gas. Or maybe I just brought the smell with me. Tonight, like most nights, I sat on the edge of the stiff mattress, staring at the blank, dark screen of the cheap television bolted to the wall. The silence in the room was profound, broken only by the rain's soft insistence. Then, it started. So faint, so subtle. I thought it was the ancient plumbing at first, or maybe just the ringing in my own ears. A melody, tinny, distorted, relentlessly, horribly cheerful. That song, the one from the radio. I went utterly still, listening. It wasn't coming from the TV or the hallway or the room next door. It seemed to exist in the silence, a phantom frequency overlaying the real world, impossibly faint but undeniably there. It swelled slightly, then faded, like a radio signal drifting on cosmic winds, finding its receiver across an impossible distance. My gaze drifted to the window, to the dark, rain-streaked glass reflecting the dim motel room light. I saw myself, gaunt, eyes sunk deep in shadowed sockets, thinner than I felt, just a man worn down by terror and exhaustion. But as I stared, captivated by the phantom music weaving through the silence, the reflection shifted, or perhaps clarified. It was my face, but the proportions felt subtly wrong. The cheekbones too sharp, the jawline too severe, the eyes, staring back from the reflection, held a terrifying stillness, reflecting the room but seeing something else entirely. They looked ancient and knowing. The way my reflection held itself wasn't quite right either. A subtle tension in the shoulders, a slight tilt of the head that felt less like weariness and more like waiting, like something coiled. The ghostly music faded completely, leaving a silence that felt colder, more profound, more watchful than before. I leaned closer to the glass, breath held tight in my chest. The reflection leaned closer too, mimicking me precisely. But it wasn't me, not anymore. I had survived Route 666, yes. I had escaped the road, But the road hadn't entirely let me go. It had taken its toll, collected its due, and sent something back in my place. Or maybe it had just hollowed me out, leaving a space for the darkness to fill. In the dim motel room, hundreds of miles from Mississippi, I stared into the eyes of the thing wearing my face in the glass. And the silence wasn't empty. It watched, and it waited. Ray escaped Route 666. But the highway took its toll, leaving something else staring back from the mirror. If this terrifying road trip gave you chills, hit like, share, and subscribe to Night Creepypasta Rules. Some roads you never truly leave behind.